Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. Season 2 with your host, Jeremy, and my co host, Mr. Reno.
Hey,
Hey, how's your day? How's your week?
it's
How's your
going.
month?
It is going very well. Way better than it was, last month. We're back in the grind.
You probably shouldn't schedule, something to do every single week.
That's true. I need to say no, and that's actually now on my habit list of saying no more, which is weird, but yeah,
Gotcha. That's I think it's something that is hard, especially as we try to become as efficient as possible during our days, to try to fit things in. And then as you become more efficient, the problem there is you can keep adding stuff and adding stuff. It doesn't matter how efficient you are, there's just so many hours that are in the day.
yeah. I've narrowed it down to like some of these podcasts can take me 10 minutes to edit, but then when you pile it up with volunteering for a bunch of different things and work on your normal work hours, things catch up to you when you keep saying yes.
Gotcha. So you just told everyone why we took a little break from the podcast.
Yeah, it was definitely a mostly me thing. So I have a lot of built up, and there's a podcast. You don't know what today is, but there's one going live here in 2 hours. So yeah,
That's all right. Hey, we didn't sweat it, right? I think I only had a couple of people like, "Hey, you guys gonna do some podcasts?" I'm like, "Yeah, we just listen." It hit a stretch that Reno was out of town traveling. I was like, I had a few in the pipeline, but I backed off of them, and it happens, right? I think there was a period of time last year where it was on me. I just was like, couldn't think of anything good to talk about or educate on. So it's like, why educate and why talk about something just to produce podcasts, right?
right.
So it's part of it. It flows. We have been thinking of ways that we can have conversations though that doesn't necessarily have to be the education, because to a certain degree now, year and a half in, the education is kind of going to remain the same to a degree. Now, what that means is, yes, we'll talk about the importance of protein. We'll talk about the importance of resistance training, cardio, fill in the blank, but we've already spoke on those things and educated on those things, right? You guys can go back through if you're new to the show, look it up. I had someone message me today, "Hey, if you did any podcasts on creatine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to say 2 to 3 of them, but I don't remember all the episodes, so totally get it from that standpoint. But we wanted to do a little fun, and I say fun today. It's not, we're not going to be diving too much in the weeds and making too many enemies. But what is going on in the social media world? Just our view. What are we seeing on our feeds that is going on? So, anything that's bugging you that you're seeing in social media? I want to start there.
Bugging me. So I haven't seen
Don't
it
go,
as of
don't go
late.
back. What,
I haven't
what,
seen
what are you seeing you just dislike in the social media world?
I haven't seen it as late, but since I kind of follow like the UFC world, you have David Goggins kind of going crazy with a few fighters,
Yep.
and he sends them down the road of like not injury prone, but he sends them down the road that he can run, hundreds of miles a day and just whatever pain happens, just push through it. Like pain is nothing. Like I love the whole thing. Like it's just pain, keep going. Nobody cares, work harder, which I love, but there is a point where, uh, you're not going to be able to keep continuing. You're going to injure yourself and then you're going to set yourself back. So that's something that was really bothering me probably December through, up until like about a month ago of you have golfers going crazy, you have basketball players, you have UFC fighters that are just pushing the limit instead of really following a good programming based on what they need. And it kind of goes for everyday people like me and you of
Yeah. Well, no, here's the thing I'm thinking on that. Like, and I'll get your opinion. I think it can be a great thing to develop discipline in some of those fighters, if we're talking about the MMA,
Mhm.
right? But if it's leading up to their event, I think that's where it's going to be really muddied the water, whether it's going to improve them or not improve them, right?
Yep.
So I think that's something to think about. Like, are we talking about off season, or really far out from, the actual fight? But yeah, like, I mean, it breaks people down. I mean, we've got some people, I love, I don't want to say not diagnosing or given as a protocol. I love having people do 75 hard to help build some discipline. But
Mhm.
I've also ran into in the past year, like people getting blood work done and the blood work being a little bit messed up from the continued breaking down muscle tissue. So the people that really get into it and are really pushing, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's great about developing discipline. But once again, if we're looking at peak performance inside of nutrition or inside of exercise, rather, you got to have that balance between recovery days and then your really hard days. But for discipline, I think those guys and gals are going to gain so much. But when they're doing it leading up to either their golfing event or to their fight, I think is going to matter, based on performance.
Yeah, and that's what they were. A lot of the one fighter in particular, if you follow MMA, you'll know who it is. He was using it all the way up until probably a month out, and he was just beat down. Uh, and he just had no muscular endurance at all during the fight, or even like cardio per se. He was just so burnt out on everything that he couldn't throw punches, couldn't even fight for himself.
And I did see something, and I can't remember the exact quote, and you can maybe help me with it, with the one fighter where he lost like a couple of hard matches and had to take some time off, and he came back. I want to say he just won the championship, and Rogan pulls him out, and the one thing that he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but adversity is a gift,
Hmm.
and that really got me thinking about, like, in life, there's things that like my father did, my grandfather did. I look back and I'll be like, there's no way that I could do that. Like there is no physical way that I could do X, Y, and Z, right? And the cool thing of this is, you think about that, they were saying the same thing about that to their fathers and their grandfathers. And I think every, decade, every 2 decades, or every generation, it's going to be the same thing. You look back and you're like, man, they had it so hard, right? And it's just a perspective thing. And yes, I'm 45 years old. I've got kids. I'm coaching kids now, and we do not have the adversity that our grandparents or our great grandparents did. I don't care who you are, right? I'm not taking away the simple fact in life that bad things happen. I'm not downplaying that for any of the listeners, for you, anyone. I'm not downplaying that. But what I'm saying is we don't have the adversity that 20, 30, 40 years ago did. Okay.
Right.
20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, they're not going to have the adversity that you and I have. That it's just the nature of how things are progressing, right? And what we have to do, I think, as adults and as coaches and leaders right now is create adversity for the people that we're leading, right? We have to create it in ourselves. And this really hit home for me. Last PT test, I didn't do as well in the run as I wanted to, and I hold myself to a higher standard. I got what, 573, which is 600 some max on the test, 573. Most people will be like, that's great, and I'm like, it's the worst I've done,
Hmm.
right? I maxed three, four of the tests, missed one by 4 or 5 points, and then I sucked the run, and it got me thinking, like, to myself. I'm like, Jeremy, you have avoided running because you're not good at it. It hurts you, right? But that's what I need, that in my life. I need to go out and make myself uncomfortable. So that's the thing I've started doing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to make myself uncomfortable. I'm going to go run, and putting it out there to everyone, I guess, now that's going to hear it. Like, there's only a couple of things I've DNF'd in events I've went and done. One of them is a 100-mile run. One of them is getting time cut at Leadville. So going to fix that. Okay, I'm been focused on Leadville this past year, mountain biking. Got a couple events coming up, trying to qualify for Leadville. But I'm also going to finish a 100-mile run the next 3 years. So there it is. Put it out there, face that adversity, because I think we have to do that to grow as human beings. And
Yep.
I think even in the scripture, it's like, hey, God gave us adversity for a reason. It was a gift. And I just love the quote that and I can't remember who said that in the MMA world, but it was just recently. So that's what I was kind of thinking about.
Yeah, I do remember that one. And I do. I keep getting it often. I can't remember the fight, but
Yeah,
I
I'll
do.
have to look it up, but I remember seeing it, but I just don't remember the name of the individual.
Um, there's one thing. I hate adversity. I'm sure everyone kind of hates adversity unless you know that there's like a reward on the other end. And a lot of times, some adversity you face, there's a reward on the other end, like a race maybe, or something like that. Um, But the last month of my life was adversity in the sense of, time away from family, time away from this, time away from things I really wanted to do, but it's just something I had to do. And there was not necessarily a reward. It was just something I had to do and get done. But I'll say it was very rewarding to get through. That was the toughest, most travel intensity time of my life. And getting through and how everything's fine, everything's good.
Everything's and I think that's the great thing about physical exercise or physical fitness is it's adversity that you can choose to do that's going to make you better in all aspects of life,
Hmm.
right? But you just have to create that. Like it shouldn't get easier. You get better, okay? Which means you get stronger, you get faster, right? You don't get better, right? Or doesn't get sorry, doesn't get easier. It still hurts, and I'm being effort here, not hurt as in pain and injury, right? So I think that is something that is just a perspective change. And I think if you can do that as an individual, not only will you be a better person, but you'll be a better leader, whether it's a husband, whether it's a mother, co-worker, whatever we're talking about.
I'd love to get back to it, but this is why I do love being kind of on active duty. Is You start your day with PT. Sometimes it's super easy, sometimes it's hard. The rest of the day is so easy, whether it's classroom work, admin work. If you start your day with a workout, no matter what kind of workout, that's
Yeah.
just the hardest part of the day, and it really amplifies the rest of your morning, afternoon.
And I'm trying to get back to that, and this ties into the first couple of things that we talked about is like, you were talking about saying no. I've gotten to where my day is pretty efficient. I do a lot of answering messages, I do a lot of answering emails, but there's some things I want to fit into the schedule. And I'm like, all right, Jeremy, you're going to have to the things two things I can tighten down on. Getting to bed quicker at night because I've been, reading the news, getting caught up in that type of stuff, not scrolling social media as much, but still on my phone, right, with news and just getting caught up on decompressing. So I can fix that. And I've been getting up a little bit early, right? And I love my sleep. Don't get me wrong. I've been loving getting 7 to 8 hours every single night. But I'm like, all right, if I can fix that half hour at night, I can get up an hour early and still be in that good quality 6 to 7 hours of sleep and gain myself 2 hours in the morning. So that's what I've done the past 2 days. I've started with, hour or 90 minutes of riding a bike on Monday. And then today got up, went to CrossFit earlier, not to get my lifting in, and then rocking and rolling today. So um, I think it's, once again, we as humans need to strive for perfection, even though that we won't get it. And that's just,
Exactly.
that's the reality. You should strive for perfection, but you'll never obtain it. And that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, the closer you get to where you feel like everything's in control, that's usually when something slides in and it throws you for a loop, and you're just back at the adversity time frame, but you just keep working up. And really the chase, once you get so close to that perfection mark, everything feels like it's just running. The oil's new oil, you're feeling amazing,
Yeah.
and you almost feel like it is perfect, even though it's not perfect. And there is a big window where everything feels perfect for a long, long time. And I do love that range of time.
Yeah, and some stuff that going back to, we're just looking on there and found some people doing some good stuff that are on, the coaching team on Team Alpha. One that I love and we've had some great conversations and is Matt Gomez. And Matt was one of the previous winners who just, changed his life, was a diabetic, got blood glucose levels down to normal, used his prize money to move from Florida, move his family to the North Carolina mountains, just things that he had visioned that God was calling him to do, which was awesome, right? And like a lot of people, you have success and then life happens, right? You make these big changes, and the pendulum swing back a little bit, and his blood glucose levels had creeped up over the last couple of years. He reached back to me, he's like, I got to get back on it, right? And he'd been engaged. He'd come to our team event, out in St. Louis this past year, so it's not like he was completely gone or not engaged. But right now he's doing great, so he's got, hemoglobin A1C was normal at his last doctor's visit, blood glucose levels in control, got his weight back down. And I think I don't know if he's rucking every day with the other guys, but I see that he's been putting in, the work and showcasing it, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah. And that's one thing I love about the Team Alpha group, or just being in it, of seeing you don't necessarily have to be following what everyone else is doing. But when you get on there and you see a big group of people like, oh, we did 6 miles of rucking today,
Yeah,
you unintentionally find that ruck on your back, and you're out doing the similar thing.
yeah.
Uh, so it does do that for you if you can be a part of the group.
Yeah, and speaking of, I think there's a handful of guys that are doing ruck every day till Memorial Day. And you just back me up on this, make sure I don't miss anybody. Brian Allen, Rob Monday, Jess Owens, and Randy Jones. I think
Yes.
they kind of tagged each other, so I think that is the crew. There might be more of them, but I think they're doing a ruck every single day up until Memorial Day, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in the group, jump in on it. I actually might tag in on a few days that I have open, and I'll start tagging them too. But that was cool to see. And then I want to shout out Monte. He actually did 75 hard. But the big thing that I actually like seeing him, and if you know Monte, he's a big boy. Um, 92 days of running 1 mile in a
Yeah,
row.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's something we're trying to do inside of our community on the First Form app. Inside of Team Alpha is just create better people, right? Yes, it's fat loss, right? A lot of people come in to the app primary to lose body fat, which between you and I and our average of 400 listeners or whatever, in each podcast here, like I am comfortable saying like I'm pretty damn good at it, right? Like the system that we have and how we stair step up, protein levels and we pull down the carbs and fats to drop the body fat and the education, like it's spot on, right? We replicate results day in and day out, month in and month out, right? But the thing about it is creating that community that then they put their feet, quote from they plant their seed into their community, whether it be their family, their friends, their coworkers, and it's spreading, right? So we're affecting hundreds, thousands of people because of the message is getting down to other people and they're changing their lives. That's the cool aspect, right? So you see this in the social media world, and right, and that's what it should be, and we could pick on like, gosh, like stop posting political stuff. It doesn't change anybody's mind.
Right.
Right? Like, stop it, guys. Like, it doesn't change anything. Political post does nothing, but it's just batter, back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Just don't post that. Think of it as truly social. Connect. World is built around relationships. So yeah, those are the ones kind of seeing. Don't get me wrong. There's other good stuff out there, but that was kind of what we were seeing inside of the social media world. And I want to keep this one up. I want to come and see what we see on a maybe a weekly basis or a monthly basis of what is going on out there in the social media world, good, bad, ugly, or something that we can just have some fun with and poke fun at from that standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I couldn't say it any better. Yep.
Yep. All right. That is a wrap. Guys and gals, we appreciate you for listening in. Make sure to look at the show notes. Check out all the sponsors of the podcast. Once again, if you're not even interested inside of any of them as far as products at this time, because hey, maybe you're just not in the phase of life that you need any of those services, still head over to their social media, give it a like, give it a follow. You never know when one of those services will come in handy inside of your life. Hope you guys have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you.